Welcome everyone to a very special Autogefühl episode here with Thomas with the Tesla Model 3. In exterior, interior, different trims, and today the very first time we drive this vehicle out on a normal road, but also on the racetrack and with a special new track mode. What can it deliver? What's the performance? And how can it be rated to the other classic competitors in this very segment here? And what's the overall price performance? This will be a very interesting episode, I can promise. And everything of that in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The front here, by the way, in my Thomas Blue favorite color, they should rename it that way, don't you think so? Well, the hood here is very, very low, again, but all sleek design lines. And I see a little bit of a proportion problem when the hood is very low, and then there's this big glass house on top that can look a little bit less beautiful than, for example, with the Tesla Model S, where the hood is also a little bit longer than too. But then again, a low hood has also an advantage. You'll soon see it from the interior. This will be very interesting. Then those headlamps also in a special shape for the Model 3. So it has some resemblance to a Model S, yes. But then it also goes in its own design way. Some also say it's a little bit Porsche-ish. But then you can see there's there's no big front grille here, so to say, because the electric motors, they need some cooling, yes. But they don't need as much cooling as the internal combustion engines, of course, because they're also more efficient. This is also what this episode will be about. We'll also go a little bit more in depth on the technology. Let's continue. 4.70 m, 15'4" or 185 inches is the length of the Tesla Model 3, so it's a mid-size sedan. And the special design feature here is, again, as we've seen with the other Teslas, this very sharp design line right here at the end of the rear windows. Other than that, special feature also with those door handles that they are seamlessly integrated. Cameras all over the vehicle, for example, also right there. They're used also for the autopilot system, which is now also included not only with the things that go in your lane, but also for changing lanes. You have to keep your hands on the steering wheel. It's not a fully autonomous function yet. But Elon Musk plans to make it fully autonomous quite soon, he recently announced. We'll see how that one plays out also as for the regulations. The new stuff you can pay extra than for the autopilot will come soon, will be addition to that the ACC also works with traffic lights inside the city. That will be very interesting. Wheels come with 18-inch standard, then it's 19 inches of optional available, and those ones here are the 20-inch because this one is the performance model. Comes with 20-inch wheels and with red brake calipers. Those one then are the special Brembo brakes as well. We'll test them on the track later. And also will be interesting with the brake regeneration on the track later on as well. Then towards the rear, see more of those 20-inch wheels. I will soon also show you different other wheel design and also different sizes. And again, a very sleek profile right here next to this huge glass roof. We'll also take a look at it from the inside. So what do you think about the Model 3 design here, guys? The rear does resemble a Model S a little bit more, especially with this tail lamp design right there. The performance model of the Model 3 also gets this carbon rear lip. This is a special feature for that. Other than that, again, you see those rather sleek design lines, so they already try to reduce the amount of design lines here in the rear. Also says here dual motor because this is the performance model. Overall, talking about the it's not engines, it's motors when we talk about electric motors. You start with a rear-wheel drive motor only, so just at the rear axle, 50 kilowatt hour battery. And then there's a bigger 75 kilowatt hour battery. Then you also get the dual motor, so one motor in the rear and one motor in the front. You have an all-wheel drive without a mechanical link. It will still work together, somehow communicate. Special feature about that one coming up in the track mode at the racetrack. We'll go in depth on how that really works. Well, and then pricing is, about $35,000 to $55,000 in the US. And in Germany, we're 45 to 65,000 euros. Of course, they need to ship them over, taxes and so on. Euro prices then too, and the European price always including VAT, Mehrwertsteuer, and the US prices excluding VAT. Well, those are some very basic facts about the engine. But what about the exact electric motor technology? So there are different building types for electric motors, and so far they've just been using the inductive electric motor, which is still here on the front axle. New is for the rear axle here in the Model 3, a permanent magnet electric motor, and this one here is then more efficient. So, and this is also a combination again to their older models, because from the new development for the Model 3, the motor here from the rear, the permanent magnetic motor, this one is moving on the front axle to the Model S and the Model X. And that's also the reason you might have wondered recently why they suddenly get a bigger range, while the capacity of the battery remains the same. Very interesting. Well, and then with this dual motor setup, they can reach an acceleration figure of just about a little bit over 3 seconds to 60 miles an hour or to 100 kilometers an hour. And the base entry level version with the 50 kilowatt hour battery and just a rear motor, that one would be over 5 seconds in the acceleration figure. So that's the difference. Still, if you look at those power figures, this 5 seconds something would be like the performance models by BMW or like a C43. And those ones here, the dual motors, would be comparable in the acceleration figure to an M3 or a C63, for example, an Audi RS4. We'll, of course, deliver that on the racetrack and also with the 0 to 100 or 0 to 60 miles an hour acceleration. But how will it compare in the agility also? We will all experience that soon on the racetrack. It will be so interesting. The charging port is right here. You can open it from the inside of the vehicle, or like this, press it, and then you see this different than the one from the Tesla Model S or X. So the Tesla Model 3 uses CCS, the both together for the DC charging, 150 kilowatt max, and just the AC would be then the 11 kilowatt charging. Or of course, you can charge with a household plug, that would also be possible. To close this one again, you don't have to do it, because this way here is a little bit creepy, so to say, but you can just leave it open. When you put in D mode, the drive mode, it will automatically close. And now some more color variety for you here in red. This one is also the performance model of the Model 3. And wait a minute. Hey, this is a Model S. So you can see something, of how the front is a little bit different. And this one here is the 18-inch aero wheel, so a little bit more tuned for aerodynamics. Yes, of course, it looks less spectacular, but if you really want maximum range, that could add, again, a little bit more miles, a little bit more kilometers. Approximately, depending on the battery capacity, you go with about 250 to 300 miles or 400 to 500 kilometers as for the official figures. And I have a grey and a black car for you, in this case here with 19-inch wheels. So I think 19 inches also totally fine visual-wise. The performance model, by the way, with 20-inch wheels also sits 10 millimeters lower. The suspension will stay all the same. It's a fixed steel suspension, no adaptive suspension yet available, and also big difference to the Tesla Model S and the X. They have the air suspension, which also receives a hardware upgrade now. But here the Model 3, also for cost-saving reasons, of course, a normal suspension. That's also what would be, for example, missing to the competitors, because they offer like adaptive suspension, sometimes even air suspension in this mid-size segment. However, we'll also see how that suspension plays out on normal street driving and also on the track driving later. And what's that here? Well, it's also the blue car of our main vehicle, but this one here also not the performance model. Therefore here, optional 19-inch wheels. This is the long-range model. For everyday driving, I would rather recommend that. You know, don't have this lowered suspension. Also, when you have smaller wheels, you have a little bit more dampening from the wheels itself if you go with 18 or 19-inch. And of course, you know, the true performance of the performance model is hardly, you know, any chance you can use in everyday driving life. So this one here will probably might be my tip to go for a Tesla Model 3. I would also take it here, blue exterior with the white interior. That would be my favorite. And the question is, why can they suddenly do quite fast deliveries? Well, they kept up with production, yes, but also they have a now secret how they can deliver it even to Europe in a quite fast way, because you might pick, you know, from a bright or dark interior, then you pick the color on the exterior, but they already have some cars on the ship. Maybe it wasn't intended to be your cars in the first place, but since they don't have so many combinations, it is, you know, there's a high chance that your exact car you configured is on that ship already. Then you can get it, by the way, you know, while it's still on the way. Very interesting approach, and shows also strategic-wise why it can be important to simplify also the configuring the build process of a whole vehicle. So, when you get to the interior, you usually press your thumb right in there and then you open it like this. I mean, you have this full integration then of the door handle. It's good for wind efficiency, for example. It's a little bit more complicated to open it like with a normal door handle. So it's also like a little bit matter of taste or what you get used to it. Then the inside. Interesting thing is all material they were used is all leather red, so it's nothing here at the inside of the door from animal source. That's really a step forward. You can see already this clean design. You open the door right here, by the way. This is to open the door from the inside. Very interesting. Then the interior is also kept pretty simple because, for example, here you have this white interior, then you have this white inlet right there, and also the white full leatherette seats. And it's really cool because they feel very, very soft, and so no one could really see at first sight or feel at first sight that it's not animal based. So it's actually quite cool. You might also ask yourself, if you go for the white interior, about stains and stuff. Yes, of course, they collect stains more easily than darker seats. However, they can also be wiped quite well, so it's not too big of a problem then. And I mean, I would always go for those ones. It just looks so cool and so much more amazing than the black ones. But again, it's of course personal taste. Which one would you go for? The steering wheel, you can see, is also kept quite clean and simple. This is the whole scheme of this car, this simplistic layout. And I'll also soon show you how you use those buttons. By the way, hold both buttons to do a soft reset. If you happen to have, like, you know, like a black screen or something, you always need to know how you would do the reset actually. So when I get inside, this is a mid-size sedan, and the controls here for the seat, they're just right down at the seat. The basic setup of the seat is that it falls a little bit more backward from the angle, so for more comfort I usually tend to put it a little bit higher in the back part. That's better to, as for, you know, my taste for the long-term comfort. So like this, and I would be sitting right here in the lowest position. Let me put it in the lowest position just for a second. I'm 1.86 or 6'1", and that leaves still plenty of room up to this panoramic roof, because this one is not one you can open. It's a gone-through panoramic roof, but then it also ensures you quite a lot of headroom. The seating position, however, let's say it's not set up for the tallest drivers. The seat is also not that wide, so you can see also, how I, reach over the seat a little bit. So the seating position is somewhat, let's say, okay, fine, but surely also in this mid-size segment, I have experienced more comfortable seats yet. Just, give you a comparison. It's very interesting because when I want to control the steering wheel setup here, I need to go into screen and then I have this setup mode. I can scroll up like this, put the steering wheel up and down, and also inward and outward. So, it goes quite quickly, and surely why not doing it like this? Left side here for the turning indicators and for the wipers. On the right side, you put in the drive gear then. So, I think if you compare it to Tesla Model X or to the S, you feel that in the S or the X, those are bigger cars, you have already a little bit more space in the front, yes. But it's okay. And in this mid-size sedan segment, you have comparable space. And of course, you have less exterior length and of course, a lower price overall. Now, welcome to this very clean interior overview. You see just a horizontal stress here. Then this 15-inch screen is the central of the vehicle. Speed will be just displayed on the top left part. And everything that, almost buttonless, everything clean. The steering wheel is way smaller in diameter than with the Model S and Model X. It also fits to the smaller car. And also when we, for example, use it on the racetrack. Why not? Again, just those two knobs here to do like some controls. On the right side, for example, here for controlling the volume. On the left side here, you can also activate the voice input. Here it's trying to read what I'm actually saying. Very interesting. So, and on the lower part, you have those magnetic fixed opens. So you put your smartphone right here. There are two chargers. I can also show it in detail very soon. Don't just put it back hard because that will happen. Just slightly that the magnet is being activated like this. Then it will work. And here also. Soon more details to that. Again, everything so clean, and that also calms you down just a little bit. So one of the very most unique cockpit interiors at the moment. Now here to the screen details. When you look at this map here and how fast it's reacting, it's one of the fastest responsiveness we've seen in all the automotive industry. And look at the resolution. This is really amazing, and it also shows the CPU power. Really very cool. And of course you can see a lot of it. It has more of this horizontal view if you compare it to the X and the S, will have more this vertical layout. Again, the speed will be displayed right there. You could open the front or the trunk and the charging opening. Phone will be connected. We have Bluetooth for the phone function and so on. No Apple CarPlay or Android Auto function for the Teslas. But most of the stuff is also okay then with using the Bluetooth function. Driving, you can, for example, go to the standard regenerative braking or low, so you have both the possibilities if you rather want a one pedal drive feeling or a little bit less from the regeneration. That's very interesting. Also how to turn in the creep mode or not. This is, well, it's not creepy, but the creep mode. So when you leave off the brake pedal, that the car rolls a little bit like with an automatic car with an ICE, or that it doesn't do it. So you can pick that on your preference. Very interesting. Display changing brightness, for example. So a lot to play around here within the system. The glove box you can open right there. The temperature you would change actually at the lower part. This will always stay that way. Also seat heating. So it is somewhat easily accessible, but not so much while driving. I think it's easier here to put like AC 22 degrees Celsius or then the according equivalent in Fahrenheit and leave it like that while driving. That's how it's also set out to, because if you would do a lot of stuff here in the big screen while driving, indeed that might be distracting. And of course they also have some fun stuff. If you click the Tesla logo, here you see the how many kilometers the car has already run. You have like the Rudolph mode or the Mars mode, a lot of different Easter eggs. And here for the Model 3 also get the fart mode, and you can fart on demand when you then press the steering wheel button. Here we go. So the lower middle console, I showed you earlier, here you can see this. You can plug in an iPhone or USB-C, so there's both possible. You can see how it's working. The cables come from underneath right there. There's the connection, so there's this dock station, so to say. The build quality here, by the way, is really very, very basic and questionable. So this is also where they, try to save some money. But you have a lot of space here. It's an electric vehicle. That's the advantage of it. The cup holders are also non-adaptive, so smaller bottles might fly around in there. A lot of black piano lacquer use here. Not such a fan of that. The middle armrest is actually quite well attached, so the shake test is actually quite good. And then there's a lot of space underneath. There's a small cubby hole right there, and you can remove it and have some more space here underneath. So indeed, this middle console is very spacious. Well, there you get a good perspective on the panoramic roof. It has, this somewhat shaded color that is also reflective against the sun, that it doesn't get too hot in here. Of course, it will still get hotter than if you would have just a closed roof. But it's really cool, leaves a lot of light still in the interior, makes a cool experience, especially and also for the rear passengers. By the way, here this is the connection from the interior, from the rear pillar. This again a questionable build quality. So yeah, there are a lot of very cool things about the car, but they also have their limitations. They don't have so much experience with building cars. So this, they can improve it over time, but surely they need to work on that. So let's get inside. Here in the rear, I have the seat as I would be driving with my 1m86 or 6'1". And since this, you're really close to the panoramic roof, but you can sit exactly here also with 4 tall adults, so I have some space above my head. Also knee room, that's also totally fine. So the using of space here due to this electric platform is actually quite good. Just with the feet you put under the seat, when it's in the lowest position, it's not really that well possible with longer feet, so you would need to put the front seat a little bit higher. Then it's easier to put your feet under the seat in front of you. And here you see it also here with the angle of my legs. It's not the most comfortable position here in the rear. What is cool that the seat here, the material, the bolstering, and also the leather red material is really soft, feels really great. That's amazing. But just from the ergonomics, it's again somewhat okay, but surely also has, some potential to be a little bit better. But overall still, this white interior just amazes me. It's so bright and so cool, and again, this simplicity and cleanness of this whole thing, even or especially when you sit in the rear, is really something very cool always. But then again, for example, when you open the door, this is like a very sharp corner right here, and this would be actually where you quite often tend to touch the car. So again, one detail they need to fix. I hope Tesla engineers are also watching right now, so they can address, for example, details like those. However, what I find quite nice is those coat hangers, and they're just retractable. Easy and clean solution. And also a climate unit for the rear passengers next to some USB supplies. And if you pan a little bit down, then you can see there is no real middle tunnel. And that's also the big advantage of a real electric car platform. So sitting here in the middle seat in the rear is actually quite cool. You have also sufficient headroom. It's also quite soft from the seating. Of course, the outer seats are more comfortable, yes. Isofix, by the way, at the outer seats. But since I don't have a middle tunnel here, I don't have to put my feet next to my neighbors. I can really have them central. And also the middle console has some space underneath, so I can really put my feet right here. This is a really good solution, and this is also one of the very rare vehicles who is using the advantage of an electric building platform of the whole EV platform. So this is really cool. So it is indeed a car you can drive with 3 tall adults here in the rear. So overall 5 tall adults, no problem actually. And then we have a middle armrest right here, like this with covers, and though they are also adaptive, but here you can see it here. This is again the issue with the build quality. So they have been improving it over time. But the thing is, you always ask yourself, which is more crucial, to have a better build quality or to have a better concept? The thing is with Tesla, their ground concept is very clever. And then they have to work on the small details where the other manufacturers have a lot of experience. So I think that leaves room for improvement. At least we can, for example, show that, and then they can work on that. What's your take on that? And here you could flip the seats just from here. And then we have here a 2/3, 1/3 split. So we'll also show that very soon from the trunk. And by the way, not to forget, when it's sitting in the middle part, that's the way you can just raise the middle head restraint. By the way, here in the back ceiling of the rear seats. Hey, doesn't it look like USB-C charging ports in the ceiling? Would have been too good, but just to show you, this is a USB-C plug, and there you can see it's a little bit too small. But that would be a cool idea, Also have some more USB-C chargers right there. But then, of course, cables would be hanging from the ceiling. Just a funny detail I wanted to show you. And now what about the trunk space we have available? My wish would have been that the Model 3 was, like this fastback opening. Have to wait for the Model Y, the smaller SUV or mid-size SUV that will be coming up on the very same platform. Then here, there's the hatch. Somewhat limited, but I think, it's quite far here, so you can very well access it. There's some more space underneath, for example, for the charging cable. And this is reasonable space underneath. You can even put a cabin trolley in there in just this hole. Very interesting. There you can see the rest. I'll just tell you some measurements. Right here, the trunk height is just over 50 centimeters. Then the width, which is usually a meter in other cars like this. Yeah, here it's a little bit less than a meter right there. And a little bit more than a meter just in the very front here. And then what about the length? Here we go. And that is just a little bit more than a meter. And then we can flip the seats. So I have to go around right there. Do it like this. 1/3. And the other way then is the 2/3. You have to put the front seats quite way forward that it works, by the way. So, and then, those front seats are a little bit more forward than they would be actually while we drive. So, this is then here 2 meters, so up to front seat. So, longer things transport is actually no problem. You can see it's just a little bit limited here through the wheel arches in width. And of course, classic sedan opening. But for a sedan, I think still very well usable. And last but not least, I also want to put some luggage inside that you can actually see it. So you can also load it in a vertical way. And see it right here, since it does not have a very flat closing right here, you can really load it until the very end and it can stand upright. So among the mid-size sedans, this is, quite well done as for the luggage flexibility. Well, and then there's even more luggage space here with the front trunk. There's, for example, like this, warning triangle, emergency triangle. So this is really interesting. So I can show you some more reasonable space. You can also, for example, put your cables in the front here. That will also be possible. So really, for a mid-size sedan, very well usable car, both from the interior space and especially as for the luggage compartments overall. And here for a comparison again, this is again the white interior, together here in this case with a black vehicle on the exterior, black paint. And then we have the black interior, so you can pick those two. This one here with the black or the dark seats. And you have this combination then, for example, with the matte wood. That's really cool. Also brings some specialty to the interior. I think the combination is also very nice. What fan are you? I would rather go for the dark interior or for the bright one. I really love the bright wood, but I'm also a fan here of the bright seats. And should you wonder about the material of the steering wheel, this one here is still animal sourced. Tesla is about to change that, so on the long run, they also want to have that one here with a high-grade leatherette for sustainability reasons and, animal friendly reasons. At the moment, you can get one, but just on special request. So you have to ask that when ordering a car. It's the same, for example, than with Mercedes cars. It's not in the prices, but you can ask for it. And they couldn't tell me exactly what's the extra price at the moment. So at the moment, you have to ask for it and probably pay an extra price. No information yet what that is. If one of you guys maybe ordered one and also went for a leatherette steering wheel, then please tell me. Of course, we'll also keep you updated on that issue. And one more look at the dark interior here at the rear. Of course, it will be somewhat easier to clean and maintain, for example, if you have kids. But then again, the white one just looks so much more fancier. Welcome to this driving experience of the Tesla Model 3, and you can see here when I'm easing it around, the turning circle is not too narrow, I feel, by the way, but the resolution of the rear view camera is pretty cool here in the screen. I will not start in the track mode because the first thing I'll do is the 0 to 100 kilometers or 0 to 60 miles acceleration. And the thing is, it does not matter here if I'm in track mode or not for the acceleration. Then for the next exercise I will turn on the track mode. So now check the speed, kmh, so kilometers per hour, and I'll just hammer it through. Beware, it's like, you know, a C63 power performance wise. Let's go. Wow, that is amazing, right? Wow. That's really like spaceship-alike, and also, again, like an M3 or like a C63. And here this is like a wet circle, and when I'm in the standard mode, all those assistance systems, they just, you know, keep the car in lane. You cannot do anything, basically. You cannot slide the car around, maybe just a little bit, but you hear the brakes are being, you know, the tires are, everything is tight. So, and to turn on the track mode, you have to stand still. Put it to P here on the right side, then go here to the track mode, yes, confirm. So now I'm in the track mode. But the thing is, normally with other performance cars, the stability control would be just drawn back. But here even more systems are active, but since we have then more torque on the rear motor, I can actually slide the car out a little bit like this, you see here. So it is actually possible then to play around with this vehicle. The thing is, it does not convey, see here, the systems are still somewhat active, or as I said, it doesn't draw it back, there's more stuff active. Still, it allows you to slide the car out, but it's a little bit against your natural driving feeling you would learn in vehicles. You have to sometimes even just, I'm full throttle at the moment, full throttle. So I can play around with the car, yes, but it's always trying to keep me in lane just once more again. So this is very interesting. Again, it's a very, very unnatural feeling I get. That's negative for, you know, from a purist racing approach, yes. But you can see if I do just one drift in the corner and accelerate out again, that works. And that's also what it's supposed to do. So it's not a system that is supposed to let you like hold the drift or something for a very long time. You know, see, it is somewhat possible, but it's hard to find a very natural line for that. See, yeah, I can keep it with a little struggle, and only if the surface here is really, really wet. See here, that works. So you need to get used to it, but it's not that I could find a very natural line. You know, maybe if you've seen our special snow episodes, where I could really keep the line as I really want to, and exactly where I want to put the car. Here, the car is very precise, as long as it keeps, you know, the natural driving surrounding. Now here, but here, you know, you don't really know when can I initiate it and when not. So again, for a purist approach, this is so much all-wheel drive controlled feeling, but when we will then later on test this car on the racetrack, or for example here, I can give you one glimpse for it with a slalom here. Like this. This was very fast, you know, the car is really controlled and you keep it in a very, very fast pace. This is very interesting. And that's what the track mode is for. It's not there to be like very natural, controlled, spectacular, purist driving feeling. It's to make you faster. And that is, you know, lap time wise, will it be a good thing? More to that very soon. It will be very interesting. So guys, this is what we came for. There's a driving experience center near to the Paul Ricard circuit, south of France. And Actually, we've been driving the real big circuit with the Porsche 911. You can also tune into that review. But this one here, they want to have a tight course to really show the driving dynamics of the track mode. But what we do here is start in the normal mode that I can show you the difference. And one thing is clear, performance-wise, just from the acceleration. And as I said, this is like a C63 or an M3. So just like, 3.4 seconds to 60 miles or 100 kilometers. So here, how that acceleration goes, that's really impressive. And they also have some Brembo brakes on those, so performance brake in this performance model, 10 millimeters lower this performance model, but it's just a fixed suspension, steel suspension, so there's nothing adaptive about it. And that's also something you can feel on the track here. So you see that the car does lean somewhat, and it gives you a very controlled feeling, however, mid-size sedan, and you can see without any track mode on, it's kind of smooth. There's no oversteering or something. The car really keeps you in the lane and you can tame it quite well. It's basically very easy to do that. And what we'll do now is go to the track mode. So you have to put into the pits for that, put it to P once again, then you go to driving, activate the track mode. Then the battery is being pre-cooled. So also here something is changing as for the vents. There's Holger, greetings to Holger everyone on camera. Yeah, we'll go once again. I think Holger also wants to drive, So the whole cooling system changed, the distribution front to rear, axle from the motors, this is changing, and also the overall torque steering functions. This is all changing now with the track mode. So it's not, again, deactivating system, it's activating more systems. And that's very interesting. Acceleration is just the same, but we'll see a difference then in handling. So although more systems are being activated, the car will get somewhat a little bit more loose, so to say, but not as loose, of course, as you would have, a normal racing car where you deactivate all the systems. Let's go. Here back to the cones. Hard braking. You feel that those tires have been working on quite a lot. And you might also pick it on camera that I can work the car a little bit more. I feel that the rear end is giving me a little bit more room to play. And when I apply some throttle, the rear end comes around a little bit more just. Slow corner right here. When I accelerate out, then I feel I have a little bit more agility. And that's what this track mode is for. Now here, really hard on the throttle and on the straight. And look how fast we can pick up the speed. And well, do I miss the sound? Of course, it's very spectacular to have the sound here in the race car then, but you can have a lot of fun even without the sound. It's very interesting here, the first electric racing episode we're having here on Autogefühl. So yes, you can have a little bit more fun, a little bit more loose feeling in this track mode indeed, but again, it's no comparison as you would have with turning off all the ESC systems in like an M3 or like a C63 or something. So that's really something different. One of the biggest difference is really the suspension, because I'm a fan of rather soft suspensions for everyday driving life, but for the racetrack, this suspension here does not give you the suitable racing response. I think you can also pick that up on camera. What the track mode also does is when I'm here in the corner and I start to accelerate out, there's like this torque vectoring or also brake steer at the outside of the corner, so the inside wheels are a little bit reduced in speed by the brakes, and that actually helps me to accelerate out faster. It's really fun that sometimes some things need to be slower to be able to go out faster, and this can all be done by the electronic control. So what they're doing here is they simulate differential locks by electronic control. That's very interesting. You also hear a little bit more tire squeaking now when I'm in the track mode. So yes, it's fun here on the racetrack with the Tesla Model 3. Here, for example, on high speed, and Now the car sets a little bit to the side, and stuff like this would not happen, you know, in those highly sporty trimmed competition models. But then you have to think about, you know, they don't have like 50 years of experience for racing cars here, and that's also not what the car is, you know, built for, what it's aimed at. And I think it's still astonishing what this car is able to do on a track. And if you would, you know, compare the lap times, because we have this raw speed, we're still quite fast right here. I mean, there's instant torque from this electric vehicle, and this is working very well. So yes, I would need some more feeling maybe in the steering. I would need a little bit stiffer suspension that is also a little bit more reactive on what I'm doing. And you can feel here that the car is working definitely more than it would be effortless with one of those, you know, performance models from the classic manufacturers. So yes, they are ahead as for the driving agility, but as for the torque that's being applied, you can just say you can have as much fun, even maybe more fun with an electric vehicle here. It's really impressive what they can do performance-wise, just from acceleration, and also how the car feels in, you know, in the weight. So there's this heavy battery right there, but you don't feel that would be a negative, because we have a very low center of gravity. That helps me when turning in and out. Again, the limiting factor is the suspension, which is not set out for the racetrack. Steering is, well, I mean, it's direct, but it doesn't have a big feel in it, so it's very light to do it. Steering ratio is about 10:1. That's comparable to one of a Alfa Giulia. So very light steering wheel. See, I don't have to turn that much, but with a little bit more feeling, that would have been quite cool, definitely. So now you see I'm getting along here, doing some smooth and round laps. And the thing is really that the track mode, again, it's not there to help you with the most spectacular driving feeling. You can see here, a little bit spin up in the rear is possible if I really force it, but this track mode is rather there to optimize your lap time. And I've been having some nice chats with the engineers of Tesla. They're also right here on location, and they are actually planning, you know, a special mode software application that you can play a little with, that you can, for example, set like, you know, I want the best lap time, or I want to be able to spin the car a little bit easier around on a like wet circle or so, that you can adjust that yourself. And, you know, one remark, it might also be, you know, I think it's the play of suspension versus or together with, you know, the missing sound. I had that in the Tesla Model S already. This is one of the very rare vehicles where you can say, I'm getting a little bit sick as a driver here. You know, you don't have like this sound input where, you know, oh, now the acceleration is really going all the way. Your body needs to learn to cope with that there is a big acceleration happening without any sound. And then when you have, you know, those G-forces that are being applied by the suspension, again, because it's not really set out for the racetrack, indeed, starting to get just a little bit sick. It's still okay, somewhat. One other aspect here of the track mode is, by the way, the regenerative braking. So that is set to a maximum, that you can actually use those ones as the brakes as soon as you lift off the throttle. And then you don't need so much real brakes yourself. This will actually take care of your brakes as well, so they will be a little bit safer. They won't overheat that fast. And so Tesla also claims that their efficiency on the racetrack is comparable to an efficiency of an ICE car, combustion engine car, on the road. And that's, you know, very interesting claim. That means that when you use an electric vehicle here as a track car, it does not use as many resources as it would do with the ICE, and also not that much power and so on. Just tires. You hear that clearly. Tires is something you are really using a lot, definitely here. That's, you know, that's just physics, you know, that's, you cannot do so much with it. So, let's see. Here, for example, apply some more throttle here. See that's even not that helpful. You can see when I'm driving smooth and round, you maybe know that from karting when you went to kart track or at some point, driving smooth and unspectacular without drifting is usually faster than really going in a very spectacular way. But you see, you know, I'm doing lap by lap. It's actually quite effortless in comparison. It's really okay. So, and the car is really capable of that, you know. There were some speculations before. It's maybe not possible to do it with a Tesla, or, you know, this stuff is overheating and stuff. And it's really interesting what they've done with the cooling system. Usually the cooling system for the battery is separated to the cooling system from the radiator for the rest of the parts. But when you are in this track mode, it's a combined cooling cycle, and the pre-cooled battery also uses the, let's say, cool thermal capacity to cool down the rest of the car parts that might be overheating. Very interesting idea, and this is all done by software. And again, speaks for the stuff that Tesla does. They can control so much by software and then also change it later on if they feel like. So, a lot of information here about the track mode, about what the Tesla Model 3 does. Very impressive ride, definitely, and together with some modifications, I think, for, you know, like suspension, especially suspension modifications, I think you can really make this one a great track car. Definitely has the potential for that. So, last corners for you without any reporting. Just enjoy the corners and the, well, non-engine sound, rather the squeaking tires. Here we go, and hope you enjoyed. And now to street driving the Tesla Model 3 with Thomas's driving lounge, the normal driving. We also still have the performance model with the 20-inch wheels here, and of course the sporty performance. And you know, when you go over some bumps, you feel that you have just a fixed suspension with the 20-inch wheels. It will be a little bit better with smaller wheels, and also when you don't pick the performance suspension. That again would be my tip for the everyday driving life for a Model 3. So get the big battery capacity, but then not the performance model, not with the sportier lower suspension, not with the 20-inch wheels. Will of course still be okay, so I'm driving that one here now, but if you're seeking the best driving comfort, the other choice will be a little bit better. One of the big questions was initially, what about the speed when you don't really see it? And indeed, GT cars going to the track. And when you see it here right on the screen, I mean, you have to look a little bit to the side, yes, but it's still somewhat okay because it's very bright and also big. However, still sticking to my claim that a head-up display would be a great addition, with one of the features they could make optional. I'll also take a look at that while driving. At the moment, I am in the standard recuperation mode, so when I lift the throttle, you see the car is decelerating quite fast. Again, I can also change that. I could go to the low regenerative braking mode. When I lift the throttle, then the car rolls a little bit further. There's still some recuperation, yes, but a little bit less. Usually, and that's also how Tesla intends it to be, it should be a one-pedal driving for the whole car. Then you leave it in this standard mode, and then you hardly use the normal brakes. You rather keep it. Oh, yeah. I have to go left here. Sorry about that. But also shows the car is very nice in handling. So right here. Well, if you just accelerate a little bit here, see how fast it goes. Just very smoothly, You can also gently apply it. You've seen it earlier, how that went. And actually for this test here now, I also want to show you that. Again, it is a little bit distracting to use the screen while driving, so you shouldn't do it. Here I can go to the sport mode and have a better acceleration. And also go to the chill mode, and especially when I have passengers here in the car, it's better to leave it in the chill mode because it is so powerful, this vehicle, and you cannot hold on because there are also, for example, no inner door handles, on the top part, no grab handles. So you rather keep it in chill mode if you want to have it like a better experience for your passengers. So I also do it right now, and also I want to tell you more about the real consumption figure when we have like a short testing loop here right now. What will we end up with? Because we then can calculate the whole range, in a realistic figure. So I would also drive now, the performance driving we did earlier in the racetrack. I will now drive to be like a very normal street driving and a rather relaxed one. And that electric vehicles from the outside, when they reach a speed over 30 kilometers an hour, they will be as loud as combustion engine cars because the tire noise is louder than the one that possibly would come from the engine. Maybe some exceptions left aside, like this car that is coming right now. That will still be louder. However, from the inside, the speed range is higher then. So when I'm like 60, 70, maybe even now here at 80 kilometers an hour, this car is still more silent from the inside, sitting here on the inside, than a combustion engine car. This is of course really good, and I enjoy this very calm and silent driving feeling. This is really relaxing, together with this simplistic interior. I already felt it in the Tesla Model S somewhat, yes, but this one here is of course even more simplistic from the interior. And I somehow like the concept, especially in contrast to some other interiors which are really like overloaded for information and so on. So the driving feeling also with this normal fixed suspension is actually quite good. So for the road, they have actually a good compromise between sportiness and comfort. Again, said earlier, on the racetrack you would need some stiffer one, or you would need an adaptive one to choose from. But here it's actually totally fine from the setup they picked right there. Again, it will be a little bit softer when you go with smaller wheels, and maybe also not that lowering of the suspension. So you can also somehow vary that with your choice. Good handling also in this roundabout. You see, I don't have to steer that much. Again, the steering feeling is somewhat a little bit artificial. A little bit more connection to the road would have been good. Indeed, it comes a little bit close to the Alfa Giulia, where it's also a little bit artificial steering feeling. It's more like in an arcade racing game. You know, you have like this computer-like input. It's somewhat direct and responsive, but the feeling you get from the connection to the road is not as you would have with some other models. However, you might remember when I tested the all-new BMW 3 Series, that also wasn't giving me a good feedback from the low angle degree areas, but then a little bit better one when you were turning like, you know, a little bit further. In this case, prefer the one of the Audi A4, which gives you a very progressive steering input and also a little bit better feeling. And for example, from the BMW SUVs, which are even better in this case. Well, strange one. And again, you get a very smooth driving feeling. You can very well control the throttle input. You just lift the throttle, the car decelerates just a little bit more. So I'm hardly using the brakes myself. If you, for example, you're stuck behind the other cars, you just leave a little bit off the throttle, and then it's already just fine. You can also see all those visualizations, what the camera view of the car is seeing. This is also a part of what they plan to do with the autopilot when they evolve it even more, to use this fleet intelligence that the whole Tesla fleet records everything, what is being happening, and then accounts for this neural network that the autopilot is being boosted by the, so to say, big data, but which is then again selected. And so the whole fleet learns constantly. And this is, I think, a very important approach, and would also be the reason why Elon Musk does not want to use LiDAR, so no laser sensors, but really wants to rely on radar and also especially this camera system. So really relaxed driving feeling, and you see when I'm not hammering the throttle, I can also reach quite good consumptions. So far we've had a lot of downhill, of course, but that's also one of the things with electric vehicles. When it's going downhill, you can gain back the energy, whereas it would be wasted otherwise. So efficiency is about between 80, 90, 95%. Just the rest is wasted for heat, whereas combustion engines, you have the majority of energy, which is basically wasted for heat. So this is the main difference why you can be more efficient with an electric motor overall. The visibility, by the way, is a very important factor. Talked about that it looks a little bit weird with this low front hood from the front perspective. But then again, when I'm sitting right here, and it's almost like driving a VW Beetle or something, you cannot even see the hood because it's so low, and it's like when you look down, you immediately see the road. So, and that's really helpful for a good overview. Even if you're not that tall, you have a very good overview sitting here and looking to the road. As for the other pillars, yes, the A pillar is somewhat thick. You have to keep that in mind. But then the look over to the B pillar, it's somewhat okay because you can still see through the rear windows a little bit. As for the very rear perspective, because the trunk is quite high, that's good for loading things in. It is somewhat limiting there, so especially when you're driving in reverse, you would rather rely on the reverse camera than on looking really to the back, because with the reverse camera you can see everything also in the lower area, what you can see in the back from you. And from here I can just see like the higher area when there are cars directly behind me. So at least they've taken that into account with offering this very interesting camera solution right there. By the way, here, when we're just going a little bit left and right, again, it's a lot of fun to drive the car, yes. Not only because it's silent, but also because you have the spontaneous power input. And again, the direct steering wheel, even if it's not that natural in the feeling, it's still fun, like a computer game would be fun. So, yeah, you might practice at home then already before you're taking a driver's license. Maybe you feel at home then also when driving the Model 3 here too. Now getting to some narrower city traffic. This is where the Model 3 also plays an advantage if you compare it to the X and the S. It's just smaller, and that's especially if you think about European roads, that's really important because we don't have so big parking spaces and so on. So in some situations where you say, oh, that really gets narrow now with the X or with the S, you say, that's really easy here. Mid-size segment is something, of a good compromise, where you have a lot of space already in the interior, but not so big exterior dimensions. Here again, the whole way, never use the brake once. Here just lifting the throttle once more. And this is also a way you can drive very efficiently and try to gain back as much power as possible. And on, long term is also saving the brakes, not only on the racetrack, but also in normal life. If you think about the total cost of ownership with an electric vehicle, this is another aspect why it might be cheaper long term, because you use less brakes. Not only if you compare fuel prices, for example. Tires will, of course, use up the very same way. There's no other or better solution for that yet. Not sure if you can pick that just acoustically on camera. Sometimes when I'm going over some bumps, then the suspension is indeed a little bit rough, and you also hear that noise-wise. Noise-wise at higher speeds, however, I feel that they've done a good job with the Model 3. You don't have much wind noise. We'll see how when we can soon go a little bit faster, how that changes. But for example, with the Model X, when I had it in a long-term test, there were always somewhat a little bit more wind noise, especially like from this area or from the mirror area or something. So that was something where I could criticize with the Model X, although it has this upright seating position, which is quite cool. Definitely more wind noises due to the whole building style. This one here again, totally different platform for the Model 3 than for the S and the X. So it's indeed a totally different car, but there's still this technology transfer they are applying. So about the seats, I told you earlier, they are somewhat okay and good. And again, the surface is really nice and soft, and also it's good that they take the more animal-friendly approach. However, the seat form itself, I think they could still work a little bit on, we can fit here. This is also one of the situations with the Model S, I wouldn't have done that properly. As for the seat form, I think they should a little bit work more on the ergonomics department, because I feel for smaller people that might work out just fine, but the seat form itself is not one that works so well for taller people. That might also be solved in the Model Y, when the seating position is a little bit more upright. But again, I'm always starting to feel like, you need to switch it around a little bit, maybe put the rear end a little bit higher. That definitely always helps. So when the angle is not leaning backward, but more upright, I think that definitely helps. So again, okay, and also comparables to some other ones, but seating comfort, as for the seat form itself, I think is at the moment best with, yeah, about that. Live on tape here, this bikers. So seating comfort-wise in this segment here, I think the Volvo S60 or V60 and the Audi A4 are top-notch. Those two are, definitely leading for me in the seating comfort, especially if you think about people that are, almost as tall as me. And I really wonder about the consumption. That would be like, it's almost unreal. But I think we were a little bit higher and we're going down. Like 82 watt hours per kilometer. That's like so unreal low. I think when we have a little bit more acceleration going uphill again, this will be more realistic. So usually, like with the Model S and with the S, and also recently with the Mercedes EQC, for example, it was like 240, 230 watt hours per kilometer. So this is mainly due to the recuperation when going downhill, that not only using less energy, but we're also gaining back energy. And again, it's good for a nice flow here. Just use the regeneration, again, not using brakes at all, and to get a smooth driving. And the chill mode is totally fine. Even just in the chill mode, you have so much power reserve. As soon as you hit the throttle, it's still already right there. So from different aspects we've taken a look at it now here. It's a very solid drive they've taken here, and you know, I've been driving Teslas now since 6 years, and you can really see like the evolution of the different elements. They are already improving, not only software-wise but also in the hardware. Yes, we did find a lot of elements still there in the interior part that needs to be addressed and fixed, but I think you can work from there on. You know, definitely. I mean, it's actually good price performance ratio overall, especially if you look at the performance and compare other competitors. But still, they want to be premium. And some of the interior elements where you could still like move it, or some of the gaps, those are not premium yet. But the overall driving experience here, this is definitely already premium. So no doubt about that. And again, with the speed, it's actually quite fine. You already get a feeling, you know, of the speed you're driving. You get it actually a little bit more even. You know, even if you don't look at the speed all the time, when you know how to drive cars, you approximately know which speed you're driving. But again, head-up display. Ajlan, if you're listening, put a head-up display right here. That would be really amazing. Yeah, the question is, I mean, it wouldn't be that clean from design right there. Yeah, that could be a design problem indeed. But again, you know, the engineers and designer, they surely need some more tasks, right? I mean, yeah, they're surely busy enough, but still that would be something that could actually be addressed. So that's about like countryside and city driving and so on. And again, you see, you can very well use the recuperation, especially with those new motors concept. So I just checked the car infotainment system and saw that this car was built before the current specs. So this is not equipped with the autopilot system. Every new vehicle you buy will be automatically equipped with the autopilot, and as I said earlier, not only with the base one, but also with the extended one now that also can do lane changes and everything. Again, you're supposed to keep your hand on the steering wheel at the moment still. The fully autonomous version is not yet regulated. So first technology will be ready for that, and then probably after that the regulations for that. And well, I actually had to reset the consumption meter after we were going to like some up and downhill and so on, and now we were like 15 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, and that's exactly the EPA figure. That's really amazing. So that would be as promised, both in kilometer and miles range. That would really mean that you have like some 14, 15 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, maybe even a little bit lower, or some like 23, 24 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. That would indeed mean a range here for the bigger battery of 300 miles or almost 500 kilometers. That's pretty amazing. So especially the regeneration seems to be even more efficient now, and also especially when you keep it on the chill mode and really just smooth ease through traffic and don't hit the full potential performance power, is really incredibly efficient, and big step forward also if you compare it to the Model S or the X. Yes, they are heavier, but this one also, due to the technology upgrades, more efficient. Really looking forward how it will be when, as I said earlier, the one motor they put here now will be also part of, the rear motor here will be also part of the front motor in the X and the S, and making that more efficient. You might wonder, why didn't they just do it also at the rear axle there? The reason for that is that the rear motor in the S and the X is a very big one, considering the weight of the cars, even bigger than the rear motor we have here. And that's the reason why they're keeping the big motor right there with a lot of power, and then just exchange the front one in the X and the S. But here again, the special motor in the rear. And I mean, considering the weight and the size of the car, of course you don't need as much power as for the S and the X. And here Autobahn cruising or motorway cruising is also, pretty comfortable. This is also what people will be doing a lot with the car, and I mean, now I'm even at 13 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, so that's really amazing. So efficiency test so far, really promising. And again, cruise control, by the way, just put it here, set 1, and then set the speed here. Then it's just normal cruise control. But again, as the new cars will have autopilot standard, you would press 1 then for just an normal adaptive cruise control then, and then press twice to activate the autopilot, which then also helps you with steering and so on. And then I can also induce lane change when you set a turning indicator and so on. Hope to be able to test it at a later stage then, when we have a little bit newer build car, which will then have this one automatically. And then also hope to do a long range test for the consumption. But what we see so far looks pretty promising. Really looks even more efficient than the recent German competitors we've driven, even if they're a little bit bigger, yes. And the Korean manufacturer Hyundai Kia, they also seem to be on a good track for very efficient electric motors. So a lot is happening there technology-wise. But this one, is already pretty amazing. So, what do you think here also from street driving with Tesla Model 3? Please leave me your feedback. And now to our conclusion for today with the Tesla Model 3. There's so much I can tell you about this vehicle, even in the conclusion, even if I have to take a short summary. The exterior is definitely very sleek. The design, is of course in the front a little bit Porsche-alike, yes, but they also have formed their own identity. I think, to me, the Tesla Model S, because it has this longer hood and so on, looks a little bit sleeker. But then again, this very flat hood you have there in the front also is good for the visibility from the interior. The interior, very simplistic. I like this very clean styling. It's a totally new and unique approach, just with this central monitor and basically nothing else. Really good that we're almost getting rid of all the animal-sourced materials, more sustainable, more animal-friendly, and of course better also if you think about allergies and so on, because less chemicals are being used. So definitely they are stepping ahead there in a lot of different ways. On the other hand, there are still some parts with questionable build quality. I mean, we can just say that out loud. That's, you could see that in little details there. And I raised this question earlier. There's still some squeaking tires here from the racetrack next to us. So raised this question earlier. What's more important, to have like a very clever concept overall, or to be very good in the details? Well, I think it is somewhat more important to have the base concept with a very intelligent one, and that is this vehicle. It's a great concept. You have a nice interior with a good space offering. You use this electric building platform. Trunk and the normal trunk is really large, considering it's a mid-size sedan. And of course a quite efficient electric drive overall. That works pretty well. They really have to pay attention to the details now if they want to keep it up with a premium competition. But I think this is, on the long run, a problem that can still be solved. And driving-wise, it was very nice to drive it on the road. Again, this simplistic interior calms you down, together, of course, with a silent EV drive. I really love that. On the racetrack, well, it was very performant in a way that the acceleration is really awesome. You have this instant torque, that's it with the electric vehicles, and also the different electric motors they have been using, also with the new motor detail I told you earlier. So this was very impressive. However, the agility as for the cornering, of course, the car somewhat comes to the limit right there. It's not thought out to be that main competitor of an M3 or C63, although the acceleration figure is actually quite equal. Suspension-wise, well, I mean, if you think about, you would put an adaptive suspension or an adaptive sports suspension in it, some third-party tuning for suspension, then it could be even more a competitor, I think, because, yeah, for the racetrack, the suspension is not stiff enough. However, of course, on the road, it's better when it's not that stiff. And I really have to get used to it. When you don't have any sound and the suspension is a little bit, wobbly for the racetrack, then you might get even a little bit sick as a driver on this racetrack. That was also a new experience. But then again, I think it's even more important that the cars handle very well on the road. And we've also seen with this, wet circle test, you don't have the very, very natural driving feeling in a way that you can do exactly what you want in a free way without any assistance systems. That's also not the concept of the vehicle. However, they plan to adjust the software a little bit according to that in the future, that you can actually choose for some track experience modes. Again, for good lap times, this little bit more control they have still also in the track mode for good lap times, it's a good solution. But again, a lot of software things, they are always happening, and you talk about something today, and maybe like next week, it's always there's a new update. That's also one of their strengths, that there are those continuous software updates. So many interesting things about this vehicle. A lot of pros, also a lot of cons, but that's totally normal. I think overall very unique and interesting vehicle. But now I want to know, what do you think about those different aspects we have covered? Please join our discussion in the comments, and also join us next time at Autogefühl.